Jake had been married to Natalie for a decade, and for a long time he believed their marriage was solid. However, as the years passed, he began to sense something was amiss. Initially, Natalie had been affectionate and supportive, and Jake felt proud to be her partner. But gradually, the dynamic shifted. Natalie started nitpicking his every action, and what was once playful teasing turned into a barrage of criticisms. No matter what Jake did, working late to provide for the family, coming home early to spend time with them, or buying her gifts, there was always something wrong. If he worked long hours, he was accused of not being ambitious enough. If he came home early, he was seen as lacking drive. This relentless cycle of disappointment took a toll on Jake's self-esteem, leaving him feeling like a failure in his own home. Despite the turmoil, Jake was determined to keep their family intact for the sake of their daughter. He wanted her to grow up in a stable environment, free from the scars of divorce. It was this commitment that made him endure the increasing tension in their marriage. One Saturday afternoon, while enjoying a moment of peace in the living room, Jake was approached by his daughter, who had a bright smile on her face. She eagerly asked if they could get ice cream. Jake chuckled, reminding her about the health risks of too much sugar. To his surprise, she shrugged it off and mentioned, "But Uncle Ben always gets me ice cream." This innocent revelation sent a shockwave through Jake. He immediately felt a sinking feeling in his stomach and asked, "Oh? Who's Uncle Ben?" Without missing a beat, his daughter explained that Uncle Ben was a friend of Mommy's who visited when Jake was at work or away on trips, treating her to ice cream and cookies. Jake was left speechless. Children typically don't fabricate such details, especially with such straightforward honesty. He masked his shock with a smile, but inside his mind was racing. Natalie had a male friend visiting while he was away, and this revelation sparked a torrent of suspicions. Instead of confronting her immediately, Jake decided to keep a close eye on her behavior. In the following weeks, he noticed a pattern. Natalie began leaving the house more often, frequently claiming she had errands to run but returning hours later. Her gym trips became longer, and she was suddenly going out with friends he had never heard of. Each time Jake asked about her whereabouts, she became defensive, creating an atmosphere where he felt he had no right to inquire about her life. Another red flag was her phone usage. It became a constant source of mystery. It was always face down on the table, and she carried it everywhere, even to the bathroom. When it rang while they were together, she would answer quickly and step away, as if to shield its contents from him. This secretive behavior was a stark departure from the transparency they once shared, which made Jake increasingly suspicious. Her attitude towards him changed drastically as well. Every little thing he did seemed to irritate her, and their arguments often coincided with her need to leave the house. Jake began to recognize that she might be looking for excuses to get away from him, effectively casting him as a villain in her narrative. Despite his growing concerns, he continued to ask if she was stressed or if something was troubling her, only to be met with dismissive responses. Finally, he stopped asking altogether, feeling that any attempt to communicate was futile. One night, while he was trying to jot down notes in their bedroom, Jake realized his pen had run out of ink. As he searched for a replacement, he noticed Natalie's handbag open on the dresser. Without thinking, he reached inside and stumbled upon a prescription bottle. The name on the bottle was unfamiliar, so he quickly Googled it. Jake's heart sank as he learned it was used to treat sexually transmitted diseases. They had not been intimate in months, and the implications of this discovery were undeniable. Natalie was having an affair. As soon as he heard the water turn off in the bathroom, he carefully placed the bottle back where he found it, choosing to bide his time. He realized that Texas was a fault-based divorce state, meaning if he could prove her infidelity, she wouldn't just lose her claim to alimony. She might even owe him damages. This realization shifted his entire approach. Instead of acting impulsively, Jake decided to gather evidence. In the days that followed, he hired a divorce lawyer specializing in infidelity cases. The lawyer guided him on what proof would be necessary to build a strong case. Jake also enlisted the help of a private investigator. After a month, the investigator returned with evidence that confirmed Jake's worst fears. Natalie was not only cheating, but she was brazen about it, even inviting her lover into their home. The investigator provided timestamps, photos, and videos of her meeting this man, while Jake was at work, with the evidence in hand. Any lingering feelings Jake had for Natalie dissipated. He realized she had been neglecting their daughter as well, often missing bedtime to be with her lover. His lawyer emphasized that proof of neglect could help him secure full custody, which became his priority. Unbeknownst to Natalie, he was meticulously assembling his case. To protect his financial interests, Jake transferred all major assets into accounts under their daughter's name, establishing them as college savings funds and inheritance accounts. Legally, these assets belonged to her, making it impossible for Natalie to claim them in the divorce. He consulted with his lawyer to ensure everything was above board, knowing that if he left everything in joint accounts, Natalie would have every right to half, if not more. One night, after yet another heated argument, Natalie finally uttered the words Jake had been anticipating. "I want a divorce." She folded her arms, expecting him to plead or panic. Instead, Jake smiled and simply replied, "Okay." Her reaction was one of surprise, as if she hadn't expected it to be so simple. The following morning, before she could initiate a discussion about dividing their assets, Jake had his lawyer send her the divorce papers. He watched as her expression shifted while reading the documents at the breakfast table. The reality of her situation began to sink in. She was not only losing alimony, but might also owe him damages. For the first time in a long while, she was speechless, her eyes wide with disbelief. During the divorce proceedings, Natalie attempted to maintain a facade of control, likely believing she could still manipulate the situation to her advantage. However, the private investigator had gathered comprehensive evidence, including timestamps of her meetings with her lover. When the court reviewed the findings, there was no denying the truth. The revelation of the STD medication was the final blow. Jake vividly recalled the way Natalie's face drained of color when the judge acknowledged the implications of her actions. In Texas, infidelity significantly impacts divorce outcomes, and because Natalie broke their vows, she lost her claim to alimony and risked owing damages. To further her devastation, the court ruled in Jake's favor for full custody. The judge recognized her reckless behavior, prioritizing her affair over their family, and as a result, he was awarded sole custody of their daughter. By the time the ruling was issued, she had been stripped of everything. As Jake walked out of the courtroom, Natalie was no longer the confident woman who had demanded a divorce. He couldn't deny that there was a time he might have considered reconciliation for their daughter's sake, but that time had passed. With clarity, Jake understood that some mistakes are irreversible, and some people only regret their actions when faced with the consequences. Initially, Natalie attempted to maintain her indifference, but once she realized she wouldn't receive anything from Jake and was losing custody, her demeanor shifted dramatically. She began sending long messages, expressing regret and reminiscing about their good times together, claiming their daughter needed both parents. But where was that concern when she was sneaking around? Where was her remorse when she deceived him and berated him for not being enough? Jake stood firm against her pleas. She tried every manipulation tactic, guilt, false remorse, and even blaming him for not fighting for their marriage. But how can one fight for something that's already been set ablaze? She was never truly sorry for her actions. She was simply regretful about being caught and losing the life she thought she could take with her. Now, Jake is free, legally, mentally, emotionally, and financially. He can finally devote his energy to his daughter and build a life where he no longer has to walk on eggshells or question the truth. He learned invaluable lessons. First, never ignore the signs. Trust your instincts when something feels off. Second, always protect yourself emotionally and financially. Had he not taken the necessary precautions,